Joining me now from Mumbai is Syed Zafar Islam. He is a national spokesperson for the BJP. And from Trivandrum, we have Thomas Isaac. He's the finance minister for the state of Kerala and a central committee member of the Communist Party of India. Thanks both so much for joining us. Let me begin in Mumbai with Syed. Why did the BJP lose these 5 states? I mean, 3 of them, you had spent 15 years in power there, and they were lost as well. What happened?
Well, let me tell you, as far as Madhya Pradesh is concerned, and Madhya Pradesh as well as Chhattisgarh is concerned, yes, we had been there for the last 15 years, but in Rajasthan, we were there only for 5 years, not 15 years. And in terms of our performance, after 15 years, if you see historically, if you just do a backtesting, you will realize in most of the election, in the state's election, no party has ruled except Bharatiya Janata Party in Gujarat have been able to retain power after 15 years. The incumbency factor definitely sets in, but in case of Bharatiya Janata Party, there was absolutely no anti-incumbency against the state government. But there may be some anti-incumbency in case of some sitting MLAs and the local representative, and because of the local issues, some anti-incumbency must be there, or the fatigue factor. Because the performance, if you see the Bharatiya Janata Party in those states, is not as bad as people were expecting. In fact, we are neck to neck in both the states, except with the exception of Chhattisgarh, where we definitely have lost, and we will introspect the reason for losing that badly. But away from that, in Rajasthan as well as in Madhya Pradesh, it's neck to neck after 15 years. If you are able to retain that kind of position, that suggests that how people have liked our party in terms of our performance, in terms of our delivery, what we have promised to people and what we have delivered is something which has been appreciated by the people of that particular state.
Okay.
But yes, the loss is lost. But if you see the margin of, in terms of the number of votes, has been polled more in our favor as against the number of votes voted in favor of Congress Party, who has won more seats than us. But in terms of the margin of victory, if you just see in as many as 20 seats, both in Rajasthan as well as in Madhya Pradesh, is less than 500 votes, which is absolutely minuscule when you count millions and millions of votes, and then you have just margin of victory is only 121 or 200 votes or 500 votes, less than 500 votes. I mean, that suggests that the popularity of Bharatiya Janata Party is still there. Yes, we have lost some fatigue factor. People may have wanted some change, and that fatigue factor must have set in, and that's why probably we have lost in this state. In terms of there was absolutely no anti-incumbency as far as the government is concerned.
Let me get Thomas Isaac's opinion then. Thomas, is this just, though not really severe losses, just part of a normal kind of political cycle, not anything to do with the BJP doing something wrong or not delivering to voters?
I agree to my friend in one sense. I'll be fooling myself if I say BJP is finished in India. They still have considerable support in the Hindi heartland. But what we should compare is not BJP position in the states 5 years back, but their position 4 years back when they fought and won the Lok Sabha, the parliament election, where 85% of the seats in these states went over to BJP. Now, reverse would have happened, not reverse, but definitely BJP is shaken. It wouldn't win majority of seats in the parliament if you go with the assembly vote. It shows that on the eve of very crucial parliament election that is coming, BJP is being undermined. One, not just disillusionment, anger, particularly in the rural areas, against what they did to the peasantry and the informal economy. The kind of maverick reforms which nobody could reasonable knowledge of economics would do, like withdrawing 85% of the currency in circulation all of a sudden in a midnight, denying the vast majority of the people for currency for as much a period as about 3 months, which dealt a blow to the whole informal economy in India. And the way the GST was implemented, it has made a mess of the trade also to great extent, and also the informal economy.
Okay.
Therefore, you find in the unorganized sector big anger coming up, and this is going to make BJP pay in the coming election.
Yeah, so, Thomas, actually, if you could quickly just clarify how much you think the demonetization policy of the BJP factored into this election.
This, I would say, is the single most important factor. Because initially, even the peasants who were suffering thought that the other is going to suffer. Finally, they realized they've been fooled. All the currency, in fact, 99% of the currency came back to the bank. And then there was the big question, why was this suffering inflicted upon them? In fact, that was the beginning of the peasant anger, which has snowballed because of the agrarian crisis. And today, therefore, you find widespread disenchantment against the governance in Delhi, and demonetization was this triggered this movement.
Syed Zafar Islam, do you accept that that was a mistake of the BJP, or are there no regrets on the demonetization policy?
Not at all. Not at all. This was, see, the Honorable Prime Minister have undertaken various and many structural reforms in the country. Demonetization is one of them, and you need not see demonetization in isolation. There are various other structural reforms which have been undertaken by our government, including RERA, including banking code, bankruptcy code, including GST. There are many such structural reforms. So in isolation, if you see, then you can have a different kind of opinion. But we know in one stroke of pen, the Honorable Prime Minister, the government of the day had achieved many objectives, including pushed for digitization, including increased the taxpayers' base. See, the taxpayers' base has doubled. The tax revenue has improved. The informal economy has become part of the formal economy. And when you finance minister, the state finance minister, Mr. Isaac, when he says, I'm really astonished when he says that we were expecting that all the currency will not come back to the system. This is something which is, I'm sorry, if a man on the street will speak, I will understand. But when a finance minister of a state will speak, I really pity on him, because everybody was expecting the demonetized currency will come back to the system, and those black money which was not in circulation and which had anonymity, nobody knew who was holding that cash, has become part of the banking system.
Fair enough.
That was the primary objective of the government. But as a finance minister, I pity on him when he speaks that he was not expecting that.
I'll accept that you both disagree.
No, since he's pitying me so much, let me tell him, this is not what I said, but what your Union Finance Minister, the GST Council, explained to us what was the rationale behind this demonetization. He, in fact, said the figure of 3 lakh crores of rupees are very likely not to come back. And that will lead to an increase in the decline in the liabilities of the Reserve Bank, which will then go to the expand the reserves of the Reserve Bank, which you could take.
Don't
tell me I am lying, but I am telling you that's what.
Please don't mislead that. You are a responsible finance minister of the state. Sorry. Please do not speak what you have discussed in private with the finance minister of the country. I do not buy that. It looks foolish when you speak something of this sort.
It's very clear the two of you are not going to agree on the effect of demonetization.
One decent economist
and how much it costs the BJP.
Has accepted this.
Okay, let me ask you then, Thomas. I mean, if you truly believe that is a fundamental mistake that the party has made with long-term consequences, do you think this election really will serve as a barometer for the federal election coming up in 2019?
Well, this triggered off. Then came a number of mistakes. Even the way the GST was rolled in without proper preparation, which has created a lot of confusion and problems for the non-formal economy. And then you have very serious agrarian problem, because there is, before the common man, the sight of these tycoons running off with looting the banks, non-paying the loans they have taken. getting off, helped off to flee from the country. And you have farmer suicides taking place because they can't pay back the money they have taken because the prices are not sufficient for the farm products. The contrast is too big for a common man. On the one side, the looters get free, looters of the bank. On the other hand, the farmers are coming to suicide. We have seen in these states very strong peasant movement, long marches of the peasants, agitation of the peasant, and therefore this result reflects the anger of the peasant. And I think this is going to be reflected, say, in the entire Hindi heartland, including UP, when the Lok Sabha election comes.
Okay, Syed, let me ask you that. I mean, a lot of eyes will be on India's farmers, as many feel they have been ignored by the government and left to struggle to survive in spite of promises that were made. How much weight do you think their votes will hold, or do you think actually you really haven't lost support among Indian farmers the way the opposition has said?
Well, away from the votes, I mean, I'm not counting even for a moment that whatever we do, only do for seeking their support in terms of their support in the election. Let me tell you, we are extremely concerned in terms of our philosophy of Bharatiya Janata Party that we have to work for the welfare of the people. Those, particularly the poor, the marginalized section, and the farmers, we have to work for their welfare. And let me tell you one thing which I think everyone knows, that India produces the second largest producers of the agriculture produce. And if you see our population is growing only by 1%, 1.35%, while the agriculture sector is growing exponentially, despite having a drought for 2 years, yet the agriculture sector has really exponentially grown. So we have the problem of surplus, excess produce, and we have a limited market. But let me tell you what is the problem, why the farmers are facing this problem. Because historically, two things which has not been done is the backward integration and forward integration and creating those kind of infrastructure. Because though whatever they produce, there is no market for them to sell. And even if there is no road, there was no road for them to take it to the market. So what we have done in last 4 years, see, you have to find a long-term solution for them to realize the best price for their produce. That's why what we have done, we have focused on creating infrastructure. We have built road. We have provided electricity. We have provided cold storage facilities. We are working on food processing, setting up food processing unit there, so that the shelf life of all those produce can be increased. Again, they are also being encouraged to export, because we have a problem of surplus. They can realize if there is a market. So that's why we have created market. It is called ENA market. That's why these farmers will go to the market. Like you trade a stock, you can trade your produce, and you get the best realization on that particular day. These are the flaws which you had historically in the past. As a finance minister, Mr. Thomas Isaac must know that these are the issues which farmers are facing. You can give them this better MSP, but the minimum support price will not solve their problem, because in terms of the production, they are producing more than which can be consumed locally. And even unless you find a place where you can really distribute, that's why we are encouraging export, and we are creating market for them for better realization of price.
Okay, Thomas, very quickly, I mean, do you think that rationale is enough to satisfy farmers who feel they've been marginalized?
No, he's saying that there is surplus production, but there is no sufficient integration backward and forward. What he means is that input prices are rising while the output prices are falling, and therefore you find the farmers squeezed from both sides. And that's why they're very angry, you see. And not only that, even the farmers are going hungry. Under the rule, BJP rule, India's position, the global hunger index, has slipped from something like 80 to 130. And that's the record. That's the record. There's hunger despite the so-called surplus production in the countryside.
Thomas,
that's really the problem.
I'll stay with you quickly for this question as well. I wanted to ask you about the gains of the Congress party. Do you think that they improved their standing in these state elections because they've changed, because their political agenda has evolved and they're now appealing to more people, or simply because the BJP failed?
Well, I don't think there has been sufficient change in the Congress agenda. They have stuck to broadly what they used to say in the past itself, except perhaps they have gone to a little bit rightward towards Hindutva agenda, at least the rhetoric. But this is essentially an anger vote against the BJP that is taking place. And here, since there is not other opposition, Congress has gained. But you'll find if you take the whole southern India, except for Karnataka, it is other non-Congress opposition parties that are going to gain. If you take UP, the biggest state in India, it is again non-Congress parties, or even Bihar also, non-Congress parties that are going to gain. Therefore, the defeat of BJP wouldn't mean that Congress will be back in position as in the past. But definitely, BJP, there will be an alternative emerging. Congress would definitely a major role there. But it is very certain from the votes in these three states that Congress is going to replace BJP.
You think that's, I want to understand the last part of what you said. You think that's unfortunate or?
Not unfortunate, I'm saying, but that's a fact.
Okay.
But therefore, Congress would have to make a restatement of their position, you see. These are not only just farmers, but the development policies and so on. They will have to go back to their old Nehruvian roots and take a position there if they want to provide an alternative. That's my understanding, knowledge. But therefore, the political picture in India remains fragmented. Today, there is an anger in the BJP against the BJP, and therefore the opposition are now having some understanding, etc. They do not split the opposition the vote and deliver the defeat to BJP.
Okay, Syed, I'll finish with you. Some say that this last election showed the death of a hardline Hindu agenda that had galvanized many, many Hindu voters. Do you see it as that?
Our agenda is only development. Our agenda is only development. That was our agenda in 2014. That will be our agenda going forward as well. But let me tell you, two important aspects. First, the Congress party, what they did, they made an announcement that in each state they won, that they will waive off all the loan currently being held by the farmer. So there's a farm loan waiver scheme they have announced. And you know that today, after swearing-in ceremony, the chief minister of that particular state has announced the loan waiver scheme. Can you just believe the state of Madhya Pradesh, where the revenue is only 50,000 crore, where the loan waived was 55,000 crore, which is like you have $8 billion is the revenue, and you have $8.5 billion you have announced the loan waiver scheme. So from where the other you will have to compromise with all the other welfare scheme you run, the state run for the poor and marginalized, only for the purpose of getting vote. They misled the people. They have actually compromised with the interests of the common man on the street and the poor section of the society.
Okay.
That is the biggest blunder they are making, because if you for last 15 years, if you see that we have what we have committed, we will provide them what they had committed, that they will provide sanitation, they will provide water, they will provide electricity, they will provide roof. They couldn't do that because all this fraudulent scheme, and we have delivered in last 15 years. We have delivered water, we have delivered electricity connection, we have delivered sanitization, we have delivered toilet, we have delivered everything what a common man needs. And for their welfare, now they will have to compromise because all the revenue, in fact, the revenue is not sufficient for the scheme what they have announced.
Syed, Zafar,
without doing their homework.
Unfortunately, the clock is against us. I'm going to have to cut you off. I'd like to thank you both so much for joining us on this edition of The Newsmakers.